But I think real quickly we'll kind of go right from the Army and just go quickly through a few things that were kind of highlights. And Joe met Elvis in the Army. Talk about fortunate, he was a Chicago boy and just happened to go in the Army at the same time. But how did you actually get to know or meet Elvis the first time?
Well, I was the only Yankee in the group too, I'll tell you right now. Anyway, so I went to the Army, and I'll make that fast because most people know about it. I met him in the service, became good friends before I left the Army. He asked me to go to work for him. All of a sudden I was in show business, I was working for the biggest star in the world, and that was very exciting. But while I was in the service, there was some interesting things going on. We went to Paris, Elvis took me there. Elvis took karate instructions from a Korean guy in Paris, and you have no idea how wonderful it was to be in Paris, France with Elvis Presley. I attracted so many girls, it was amazing. Anyway, but you know, I want to tell you about this. One time, there was a real dangerous point that happened in Elvis' life while we were in Germany. He used to go out on maneuvers a lot, and in those days, it was stormy weather, it was cold, and we used to go out in the wintertime. I didn't go in maneuvers because I worked in the office. Anyway, I know it was. But there was an incident that was written about many times that, Elvis, he was out in maneuvers, and it was late at night, and him and his sergeant decided to take a nap. They were in a Jeep, and Jeeps, they aren't closed up, they're just covered with canvas. And so they decided to sleep a little bit, and they left the engine running so the heat would come out of the engine, because it was freezing cold, with the tarp over it, okay? So they were sleeping, he fell asleep, and apparently he passed out, and so did the sergeant. They were completely sound asleep. But thank God, a big wind blew, and it blew the car over it, off the Jeep. And Elvis woke up and fell out right in the snow. So thank God that wind blew, because who knows what would have happened. And then we took Elvis to the hospital, and because they thought he was going to get pneumonia or something like that, but luckily he was fine. I went over to see him because I wasn't in the field. I went to the hospital to visit with him, but he was great. But it's weird how certain things happen in life. If it wasn't for that big wind that blew that tarp off.
Just a few more minutes.
Yeah, right.
He actually ended up in the hospital.
Yes, he did end up in the hospital. Yeah. And that's a little story about my Army days with Elvis. I could go on forever, guys, but we only got a great show we got to do tonight.
Joe, real quick, we've got the TCB band with us, and it's going to be awesome. But that first night that Elvis performed with the TCB band, what was it like? Because I know when I saw Elvis in Vegas, I felt the goosebumps. You still feel them when you talk about it. But all of a sudden, the quietness just came over. Right before he walked out, it was like everybody seemed to know. But what was that first night in Vegas?
Well, it was a very exciting evening. I'm very honored that I was able to be there for that, but he was a nervous wreck, because you remember he hadn't performed live in front of an audience in about 7 years. So it was very, very nerve-wracking, and you saw there was a documentary done, and Elvis pacing back and forth, and nervous as could be. And so anyway, so we went around to the stage, get ready to walk on, and that's when he was really sweating. Like he was on for a half hour already. He was really sweating and nervous, and that's when 2001, The Space Odyssey came on. They never announced, now ladies and gentlemen, Elvis Presley. They never did. 2001, Space Odyssey come out, and you knew Elvis was going to come out of those curtains any time now. And the people just got so quiet, it was like Jesus Christ walking out right now. He walked out, the spotlight hit him, and the people went crazy. Now these were all celebrities, all invited guests, and usually they're a pretty dull crowd. Anyway, but Elvis walked out there, and you could tell he was a little nervous in his voice and everything when he first started singing, but once he got going, it was the most unbelievable show you ever saw in your life. I wish they could have taped it, because everybody stood up after every song and had a standing ovation, including all the celebrities. Sammy Davis Jr. was right at the end of the stage there, and he was going crazy while watching Elvis. And that inspired Elvis even more. So when we did that show for about an hour and 30 minutes, Elvis walked off that stage, we were all just couldn't believe it. He walked off, he had tears in his eyes. He was so happy what happened. And not only that, Colonel Parker came into the dressing room and gave him a big hug. He had tears in his eyes, and he didn't cry too often. Yeah, it was an amazing experience. I was very honored to be there.
But he was very nervous before the show.
Very nervous. Very, very nervous.
I just actually, if he was very nervous, I guess he was very, very nervous before the show. Okay, one quick thing about, because we were talking about Charlie Hodge, how much we miss Charlie Hodge. And one of the funniest times is when you and Charlie were telling the story. Well, Charlie started the story first about the time Elvis was drinking. And I mean, Elvis didn't drink really much, so you got to explain that one. But Charlie, the funniest thing about this story is Charlie started out with the story, and then you said, "Wait a minute, that's not how it happened," because it actually happened to you. But he made it sound like it was happening to him. It was so funny.
Well, as most people know, Elvis was not a drinker because most of the family on the Smith side were all drunks. Okay, so he didn't drink. We didn't allow to have booze in the house. But we were shooting one night on a Friday night in the back lot at I think it was at Universal or 20th Century Fox, I forgot what it was. Anyway, so it was very cold, and we were out there shooting until about 12, 1 o'clock at night. So Elvis was very cold, and he'd say, "Man, can we get some coffee or something?" Elvis didn't drink too much coffee. One of the guys said, "Here, take a little of this." And Elvis took it, and it was an alcohol, but it was very sweet. It was schnapps, yeah. Schnapps, real good tasting, very good. So he said, "Oh, this is pretty good." And he drank it. I said, "That made me feel pretty warm." So that evening, before we got through, he was drinking a pretty good amount of schnapps. Peppermint schnapps, right? Peppermint schnapps. Okay. So then, yeah, you drink it all the time. Anyway, so that evening we were getting ready to go to Palm Springs to go for the weekend, just to hang out. So we all jump in the car, and I'm driving toward Palm Springs. And Elvis said, "Boy, that pepper schnapps was good." He said, "Let's stop and get some." I said, "Well, Elvis, why don't we able to get to Palm Springs?" No, stop. So I stopped at a liquor store. I forgot Charlie, somebody went inside, got it, and brought it in the car and had a couple of cups. And I was not drinking because I was driving. Anyway, we get to Palm Springs, and Elvis is pretty well smashed. Okay? He's pretty well. He's as happy as could be, and I think he crawled to his bedroom, I think. Anyway, he said, "I'm going to bed." So he goes to bed. So we all cry. We all go to our rooms late. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning. So I go to my room and get in bed. About an hour later, there's a knock on my door. So I get up and go open the door, and Elvis is standing up to me. He says, "Joe, call the doctor." And he throws up all over me. I was covered in schnapps, what can I tell you? How many people could say that Elvis threw up on him? I'm the only guy that Elvis ever did that on. He said, "Joe," he says, "Man, I feel so much better." He goes to bed. And that's the truth. That's the God's truth. I had a lot of great good times with Elvis over the years, and it was a wonderful time, and it's so good to see everybody here, and some old friends, and it's wonderful to see everybody still out there supporting Elvis. And I gotta thank my friend Darwin Lamb. He's been doing this forever, and he does a great job, and he really does. And it's unbelievable. And my friend Red Robinson, yeah,